When we think of the kind of relationship that we can have with God, we often think in terms of maybe being a servant of God or a child of God or a follower of Jesus. These are some of the different ways that the scripture describes believers, and so we tend to gravitate to these terms. But there's another term that's used a little less frequently in the Bible that I think is really helpful, and that term is friend. To be a believer means that we're a friend of God. Now, this really shouldn't be surprising to us because our God is a God of grace. The most classic definition of God's grace is unmerited favor. It means that God simply favors us even though we don't deserve it, even though we don't merit it in any way. You can also say it in this way: God just loves you. God just likes you, even though you don't deserve it, because that's who God is. He's just that good. So think about the fact that if God favors you, if he loves you, if he likes you, well, then of course you're going to be God's friend. In James 2:23, it says this, "And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called God's friend." Abraham is also referred to as God's friend in Isaiah and 2 Chronicles. So Abraham believed and he became God's friend, and the same is true for us. Now, if we haven't put our faith in God, God's disposition toward us is still grace, and God still desires to be our friend, but those things can't really happen until we believe, because you can't receive grace from or be friends with a God that you don't believe in. Now, in 1 John 15:15, Jesus said this to his disciples. He said, "I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I have learned from my Father, I have made known to you." So Jesus calls his disciples friends. And when we put our faith in Jesus, we become his disciples too, and we also become his friends. So again, if you are a believer, if you have trusted your life to Jesus and you're seeking to live for him, then you are a friend of God. So is that how you think of yourself? I sure hope that it is, because our friends are people who are incredibly important to us. We love them. We like them. They are valuable. We will care for our friends. We will help our friends. We will even fight for our friends if we need to. And all of these things are true of the way that God thinks of you by faith, because as a believer, you are a friend of God.